I recently had a client reach out to me wanting a custom hammer. So in this video, we are going to customize one. My client wanted a Viking theme since he saw my other lineman hammer that I modified, so we're gonna do something like that on this one, maybe a little different. The first thing we need to do is to prep this so I can stencil and carve it. We're gonna begin with some painter's tape to protect the head. Normally I would remove this black coating, but I'm going to leave it on there in case of rust. Before we sand this, I want to take the sticker off, and one of the best ways to remove stickers from anything is a heat gun. So we're just going to turn this on high and go over this for about 20 seconds. And now it should come right off. Just like that. Instead of sanding this by hand, I'm going to use my palm sander with a light grade sandpaper on here because it's a lot easier. For this next part, I am sketching the design on paper, or at least that's what I thought I was going to do. I felt my creativity being sucked dry, so I had to move on to this hammer. So I just went ahead and started sketching the design on the hammer. And a tip for you guys here, always be sure to use thick edges on your design. That way, if you mess up, you have real estate room to work with. Now, if this looks familiar to you, it is because you probably saw my other video where I wood burned this right here. And I'm taking inspiration from the Anatomy of Viking Art from Jonas Lau Markussen. I highly suggest that you pick this book up. I am texting Anthony, which is my client who is buying this. He wants a design change. And because of that reason, I started already carving this so I could carve this side for the camera. So this side, I've already started on. And on this side, I am going to erase all this and put his last name on here. I am using the Marathon 3 micro motor because it is so easy in the hand. And there is, I'm not even, oh, wrong button. There we go. This is so easy in your hand and it doesn't vibrate a lot. And since I am working with some crazy, tedious, small designs, I need something small with minimal vibration. The main burr I am using is the inverted cone burr from Lasco Burrs, and this is probably one of my favorites. The second burr I am using, and you will not be able to see this little small round part on here, but it is a round carbide burr. And a bigger round carbide burr. And these are the three main ones that I am using. Since I will not be carving this part on camera, I'm going to show you what I've been doing on this side so you will not be lost when I continue back on this side. So, I am taking the inverted cone burr right here, and I am going right along the edge of this design and tracing it with this at an angle, just like this. I'm going through here getting all my straight lines, and then I am taking the small round carbide burr, and you see the little intricate parts through here. I am barely carving away and just tracing the design, being very careful with all the knot work that I have. And when I flip this, this looks like a complete mess, but I got it under control. So we are going to go through here on this side with the round carbide burr and make our cuts just a little bit deeper. Then we are going to take the inverted cone head burr. This is fantastic for knot work because I can just lay this down at an angle and just zip it across and make those knots curve underneath each other. Since I have my dust collector going, I'm really not going to be using a mask because the majority of the dust is going right here. I know we just jumped right into the middle of this, not giving you a lot of context to start with, but just hang with me here. I promise this design is going to clean up and we have a lot of carving ahead of us. So what we are doing here is going around the outer and inner edges with the inverted cone burr, and I am just zipping a quick line across them just to have a reference point. The basic idea here is to rough out your initial designs, but when I say roughing out, I don't mean taking a lot of wood off. I am trying to get this as shallow as possible. You can see here I am sticking the edge of that inverted cone head burr right underneath the design, and that is actually undercutting the design and making those knots ramp up under each other. And that is what is giving the illusion of the 3D effect. I will use this technique across all of the knots, and that should give me a pretty clean look. On the smaller intricate areas like this, you will want to use the small round carbide burr. And I'm just zipping in there really slow, taking my time, that way I do not get any burr hop or burr run, which means your burr just goes off to the side and it can really tear up the design. So I'm just taking my time, removing the stock little by little in the intricate places. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that your negative areas are all the same depth. So you just want to take your time with this, and what I am showing and teaching you here will apply to other carvings like this. So the skills are transferable. You're going to see me bounce back and forth between this inverted cone burr and the round carbide burrs. And this is because every time that I carve, I'm seeing that I need to take it a little deeper with my other burr. So I'm just going to switch between these two. Don't let this confuse you. I'm undercutting the whole outer edge of the design. Now, I like to say that I'm carving at 45 degrees here, but I don't think it's quite 45 degrees, but it looks good enough. So on any project I do with carving, I usually try to undercut it like this, especially if it's knot work. I mean, it will make that design just pop out. I will be stippling this anyhow, but this will just make the design look nicer. I am using one light source in front of me. That way I will have some shadows on the left side of the hammer, and that will allow me to eyeball and see the shadows. That way I can get everything at the consistent depth I need it to be. Now for the scariest part, I have to sand this design. Now the reason I am doing this is to get all the pencil and the graphite markings off and see where my edges are going. And this will reveal all my jagged edges, and from here I have to clean it up. So let's get sanding. This is looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna go right here, and now my next step is to take the sandpaper and to go in all the crevices and sand as good as I can. Now we have to be careful with this because we don't want to take away the detail, which I will be adding some more detail in after this. I just took the sandpaper and went over my design. Now this is something I want to you've heard me say this a million times, and I'm going to tell you again. If I sand too much, it is like almost putting makeup on, and it actually removes. It's like a makeup that removes, and it covers up your sharp edges. But if I do not sand enough, all my edges are smudgy and it just looks nasty. And I am going to go right along the edges of all the knots on this hammer here. And just like here, I'm going to go through here and just lightly sand. Go on the edges. Like I see a jagged edge right here. I'm going to go through there, fold the sandpaper up, and just go around it. And guys, when you are power carving, this isn't like carving with knives or gouges, because this is a lot messier. You have to counter react. And I'll probably go over this again when I'm done with sandpaper just a little bit to bring some of the detail out. Okay, we are about 95% done with this design. I am going to sand off this design and put Anthony's name on here. And by the way, if you want to get some ideas for wood carving, be sure to check out my project idea guide mini course below. All I'm doing here is using some rubbing alcohol to remove all of the nastiness off that hammer. And I printed out this guy's last name on this transfer paper I got from SEM Systems. And this is the same time I got the 400XS handpiece from SEM Systems. And what's so special about this tool right here is that it spins at 400,000 RPMs. Absolutely crazy. I'm using an air tank to power this with, and we are carving at such a fast speed that there is no burr hop, no burr run. My hand is not fatigued, and I can just go around the outer edges of the design with ease and get a good, nice, consistent depth. I'm actually spinning at around 200,000 RPMs right here because I did not set my PSI correctly. But I later corrected that, but this is still doing a great job. If I would have had this tool before the Marathon 3, I think I could have finished the other design a lot faster with a lot cleaner results, to be honest with you. One thing that I like about this 400XS is that I can carve right or left. If you are using a traditional, Dremel flex shaft or Fordham, you usually have to pull the burr to your left to get that cutting edge and to get a good cut, but with this right here, it's consistent across the board. If you caught my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. But this right here can go left or right and just remove that stock. I'm using the same round carbide burr to remove the stock inside and around the name, and I'm trying to keep this at a consistent depth. It's not perfect, but it's going to work. But I'm just going to go through this entire design and just hog it out. After I got the inner and outer parts of my design hogged out, I'm just kind of zipping the 400XS rotary tool left and right to try to keep everything just faded in nice where it's not rough looking. We've done a pretty good job here, although it's not perfect, it still works, so I'm pleased with it. Oh, and by the way, I know we're getting kind of long in the video here. This is a tomahawk handle that the National Guard put a rush order on, so I was just getting this completed for them and sending it off, and I will tell you that 400XS rotary tool made quick work of this design. I popped in a small round carbide burr, and now I am going to go over my accent areas. And I'm actually moving slower than I would like to. I'm just super nervous, and I have my camera like right up in my face, and it's hard for me to see. And because of that reason, I'm going slow and burning some of the wood, but it's all right. We'll fix it later. I want you guys to catch what I'm doing here. So we carved our design, we put our knots in, which made it 3D. Now we are just doing the top embellishments. So we have a lot of stuff going on, and this is a really busy design. I'm normally not a fan of like busy artwork, if that makes sense. But with this Viking design, we have a lot of room to just add in a lot of detail. We are going to give this a quick sand. That way we can knock off all the nasty areas and move back to the inverted cone head burr. I am using the Dremel stylo, and I have this inverted cone burr turned over on its head. And when you keep that flat, it is going to clean up all of the negative recessed areas and give it a smooth finish, because I can't put sandpaper in there. So I'm just going to move along here and put this in different parts of the design that I want to lay down or clean up. I wasn't going to do any stippling, but I got to looking at the design and I thought, well, you know what, it needs it. So the way you stipple is that you get a small round carbide burr and you make a bunch of random dots all over the place. I already got on the inside of the design, so I'm going to do the outer edge now, being careful not to do too much. After I got this all taped up, I moved outside and put some stripper across the head of this hammer to remove that epoxy coating. And this was really stubborn. I actually did this process about 3 or 4 times, but I've shortened the video so it wouldn't be too long to watch. But you can see here, I just took a knife and I just began to just take the epoxy off. And as I went inside here, I don't know what happened, but it looks like this was recoated with some different coating. I guess they changed their design or something was going on. I guess it was like a blemished item, so they just recoated it, which was fine. We just had to put another coating on here. It's kind of satisfying to see all this stuff being cut off, but it took quite a while and it was a big headache, but I'm glad I got it done. I'm torching this to give it a little bit of character and to bring the wood grain out. Now, you don't want to torch too much, and I actually did at the top right here. You can see where it burned, so I took some sandpaper and removed that. I decided to go ahead and wood burn around the designs so the image would pop out. I'm thinking it is going to look better this way. And to be honest with you guys, I did not want to wood burn this design, but I got the names a little too deep and I needed to create some separation between them and the background. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it is what it is. Well, I decided if you do one side, you have to do the other. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to zip the inside and the outside edges, being careful not to overburn it. I really don't recommend wood burning most wood carvings, just because it can turn out really nasty if you don't know what you're doing. And to be honest, I don't think I know what I'm doing half the time, but I will give you some reasons why I am wood burning this. Number one is that the type of design that it is. It's really intricate and I can get away with a lot of stuff because it's so busy. And number two, and that is because I power carved this. Now, if I were to use traditional carving chisels and to get that buttery smooth 45-degree bevel cut on this, I could have skipped the wood burning because I would have had perfect shadows. But since I used a rotary tool, that burr is just zipping in and out of that design and it's going to be messy. Now, I could always get better and make a cleaner design with carving, But just for this right here, I didn't have my 400 XS yet, and I am not that steady of a hand, to believe it or not. I mean, I'm looking at some of the knot work right here, and I'm seeing some things that I don't like at all, but I can't help. So the wood burner will help cover that up, and it's kind of like a cheat, to be honest with you, but it's starting to come together, and overall, I am pleased. My idea here is to get some teak oil, put on both sides of the design to make it a resist against the stain I am about to put on, or the dye rather. So I'm just going to lather this up and let it sit for a little bit and wipe it off. I'm trying to be careful not to get this on the body of the hammer, which you can see I failed at. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, I gave that a good wiping down, and I'm actually using some dark brown leather dye on this. I think this is Fibbings. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So I'm just kind of just lathering this up on here, and that wood is soaking it up. I want the inside of the design to be extremely dark, so I'm being a little heavy-handed with how much dye I am using, and it's looking like it's taken pretty well. I'm not completely sold that the teak oil is doing its job as a resist, but we are going to keep moving forward. I definitely want the body of the hammer to be darker than the design, and that is the key behind this whole thing right here. You always want your design, for my taste, to be lighter than the body. I'm giving this a good wipe down to get all that dye off, and now I am going to start buffing this design because, like I said, that teak oil did not do a good job. So I'm lightly sanding this with some 600 grit sandpaper, and I eventually moved to other means like the backside of some leather, and it's starting to buff pretty nice, and I'm liking the sheen finish that I'm getting on this. I eventually moved to my Dremel buffing wheel. I didn't put any compound on this. It's probably loaded with some old flits or something, metal polishing compound, but it did a pretty good job and it gave it a nice sheen. To seal this, I went to Home Depot and I got some bare polyurethane in satin and the matte finish. And to be honest, I messed up on this and I put satin on, and I meant to do matte. So, but hey, it is what it is. So we're just going to slop this on here and get it spread across evenly. After the wood on this hammer dried and cured, I started working on the design for the head. I'll tell you more about this design in a minute, but it was heavily inspired from the God of War Leviathan axe. My pencil wasn't working too well when I went to put this design on the hammerhead, so I decided to pull out my old airbrush that I haven't used in 2 years. And this is actually my second time to use this. So I got this thing taped up and ready to go. And you can definitely tell that I do not know what I am doing here, but after a few strokes here, I started getting the hang of it. And I just wanted a light coat of paint, that way I could see my pencil markings. Okay guys, we are about to engrave the head of this hammer, and it has taken me so long to get to the spot right here, but we are using the 400XS from SEM Systems. I pulled heavy inspiration obviously from the Leviathan axe from God of War and from some Mexico burial sites where they unearthed some like old school 14,000 BC, according to carbon-14 testing, some Aztec alien inscriptions on stuff. Pretty crazy things. So I researched and got some of this on here and pulled some inspiration from that as well. So, and I may bring my light down right here so I can see what the heck I'm doing, since this design is pretty intricate. Let's get started. The last thing I want is for this video to be promotional, but dang, how do you not like this 400XS? I am just zipping through this metal like it is butter. There is no drag, there is no rough vibration, and the only thing that I have a complaint about is that I have the camera so close I can't really see what I'm doing that well. And I eventually on the other side changed camera angles where I can see, but this is just coming along really nice. My hands are a little shaky, but practice makes perfect, or I like to say practice makes better. I don't believe in perfect. I do believe in excellent though. Okay, I had to bring my magnifying glass out because I could not see, and I was making room for the camera to see. By doing that, I messed up a couple of times, but overall it's pretty good. But once I get my light down here, I saw all my mistakes, and I should have been using a smaller carbide bit. But I went through, cleaned up some of the mistakes. I didn't do the other side yet because I want to see how this side is doing right here. So I'm liking this so far. This is looking pretty cool. Okay, we have this engraved, and now I am going to clean off the excess paint with this paint thinner right here. This paint is stubborn. For the next part here, we are going to take this super blue, which is gum blue. You put this on gun barrels and such. We're gonna put it on here, then I'm gonna lightly sand some of it off, and my hopes is that this gum blue will get into the crevices of this engraving. That way we can sand the top and make that engraving dark. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, so if it doesn't, oh well, we'll find another method. Be sure you have some good ventilation because this is some strong stuff, guys. So we're just gonna put that on there good. It's already darkening up. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was wanting. That's pretty good. I'm gonna do one more and be heavy-handed with this in the cracks and crevices of the engraving. I have some water, and I don't want to completely submerge this because I have the wood. I don't want to get wet, so I'm going to take this bowl of water, dip a napkin into there, and just slop the water on there. There we go. And that's on there. That looks cool. Okay, guys, I am spraying this down with some rim oil, and we are going to lightly buff around the hammer head. You can't tell on camera, but that is starting to look really, really nice. I'm happy of how all this turned out. The more I got to thinking about it, I wanted some leather on this hammer, so I'm making a simple little haft guard for the top of the hammer. And I got this cut out to the dimensions that I thought was good. And the next thing I am going to do is to put this in my laser, and we are going to get a cool Viking design. I would like to do this by hand, but this design that I am doing is way too intricate, and I'm not that good at leather work. And the only footage I got of the laser working, which is the X-Tool P2, is my cell phone footage right here, which is pretty terrible. My little camera on the side you see there did not work well. After we engraved that, I just wiped it down with some alcohol, and man, that thing looks amazing. I went ahead and used the same color leather dye, and I think it looks pretty good. After seeing how it turned out, I probably would have just left the regular veg tan leather and let it patina on its own. To lighten the design a little bit, I used a piece of sandpaper on it. Before we stitch this up, I am going to add some leather cement, and this will help keep the edges together while I am sewing it up. To be honest with you guys, I have no idea the pattern that I am doing. I started out with one, then I actually started over, which I did not show on camera. But I'm just looping this through, then running it back and tying it off. The slides, so I'm going to put a little bit more glue in here and trying to keep it off the hammer. And we are finished. Look at this. I am so happy with the way that this turned out, with all mistakes included that I made. Vitaly, thank you so much. I know you're watching this video. I took way too long on this and you have been more than patient with me. So thank you so much while I took time to carve this and make this video. So overall, I am happy, and to all of my subscribers and new viewers out there, I hope that this video inspired you, it taught you something. Even if you were to go get a cheap hammer, you can start carving, make something cool. That way it's just not like a blank piece of wood. This right here is a hammer. I mean, you can go there, put someone's name on it. I mean, that's cool, and then it's different. So I encourage you to go do that or find your own creative medium. You can do that and be inspired by this or find your own thing. So I hope this video inspired you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.